sense of who's on our call today for discussion. So I'm just going to go in order in which I see them on my screen, and if I accidentally overlook someone, ask for some forgiveness on that, and I'll do my best to circle back with anyone I might have missed. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Meg Knight. She's on JCC. So good morning, Meg.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Meg. I am the grant writer for the Tucson JCC, and have a couple other team members that may be joining this morning. Mike Adarian is our CFO, and also Josh Shanker is our Chief Program Officer.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to see if Mike and Josh are able to join as well today. So thank you. And good morning. Shaylin Turney from Project More.
Hi, it's Shaylin. I'm with Project More, and nice to see and hear everybody again.
And Shaylin, do you have any other staff members with you today?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. It's just me.
All right. Okay. You're showing up twice on the roster here, so I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't excluded.
Yeah, because my desktop doesn't have a microphone or a camera.
Okay. All right.
Transfer, and it kind of seems to need both.
I understand. Okay, that makes sense. All right, appreciate it.
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Then you're welcome. And then Steve Knapp from Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Sorry about that. I was trying to help Irma.
No worries.
Disconnected or we're having some technical difficulties.
It's all right. Good morning, Steve. So is Irma on the call as well?
She's trying.
Okay.
It keeps directing her to Google. I'm not sure what link. I think she's hitting the viewing.
Okay, well, we'll circle back in just a moment to make sure that you're set up for success. So good morning. I'm John Hawbaker from Town Aurora Valley. Good morning, John.
Good morning. This is John, and the transit manager here. And Mike Alexander's on vacation this week, so he's not with me.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome. And then Franny, Tohono O'odham. I don't know if your audio is working today, but, so Franny, good morning and welcome. I don't think Franny's audio is working this morning, so welcome nonetheless, Franny. And then Steve, is Irma able to get her technology working, or do we need to reach out and support her?
So I think she's on the public viewing.
Oh, okay.
So she's there. She just,
She
and I want
can't
to
actively
resend her the
participate.
link, so hopefully we can get her there.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, if we need to circle back, we will, to make sure Steve gets an introduction. Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, I think that concludes the introductions. I know our IT team is going to send her an email right now, her being Irma, to make sure she has the right link. It just might just affirm what you already sent, so you can tell her she might see one from the IT team coming through. All right, so with the conclusion of introductions, if I haven't missed anyone, we're going to go ahead and move forward to the next topic on our agenda, which is in-kind. So as a reminder, our regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. And of course, PAG collects data on the time dedicated to those meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. And so if you as an individual in this meeting are paid with federal dollars, please let us know so that we do not count it in our in-kind reporting. So time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and of course the meeting materials. And at the conclusion of this meeting, a session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. And so time spent on PAG or RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. So again, if you are paid, if your position is paid or in part or entirely with federal dollars, please let us know now and be sure to send me an email to kind of affirm that so we can make sure that our in-kind reporting is accurate. So thank you so much for your support on that. All right, we're going to go move forward to the next item on the agenda. And so the first item on the item on the agenda that appears next is entitled Increasing Access Through Coordination. And so this is in alignment with our coordinated plan. And since the vast majority of us on the call today have just went through the FTA Section 5310 grant cycle, most of you are very aware of the coordinated plan and the elements that are pertinent to that because your projects have to be closely aligned with that. And of course, one of the elements within the rubric is about increasing access through coordination. So that is the genesis of why we are going to take some time to talk about this today. So one of the things that we've been talking about for a brief amount of time is what are the opportunities to advance coordination? What are some of those building blocks that'll allow us to do that? And so through that, a lot of you shared with me, your mobility manager, the things that you're actively working on to demonstrate your efforts to coordinate within the region. And some of those efforts have to do with some of these bullet points that you're seeing on that slide. And so some of the efforts that people have shared with me are things that they are working on or are hoping to work on with regard to shared learning or cross training, because each of you bring to the table different bench strengths based on the people that you serve and in the ways that you serve. And so the hope is that we can take a closer look at those pieces and see where there's some opportunities for us to arguably do some cross training with one another, right? So that we can lean on the wisdom and the expertise and the knowledge of other agencies to kind of enhance what we're already doing. And also just to be able to kind of affirm that the way in which we train our staff or the way that we approach different things has a lot of similarities, because through those similarities, we can identify opportunities to make our programs stronger, but also to have more confidence about new opportunities to coordinate, because the way in which our staff is trained is consistent. And so those are some pieces that we want to try to take a look at. Another piece has been that quality of services training. So what are the things that we do internally to best support people, whether it be people in the general public or the clients in which you serve. And again, there's going to be some overlap potentially. And so we try to take a look at that. And of course, what are some of the opportunities to partner with different organizations? For example, Centran and the city of Tucson, they've been actively working on some travel training initiatives. And I know they have reached out to different agencies within the working group to see what are some opportunities to coordinate in that space. So how do we continue on that journey and perhaps add to that, but also what are the opportunities to coordinate beyond that? And then the last piece is kind of that understanding. So when we talk about, equitable exchanges of services or resources, what does that look like, and what can make sense for us to take a look at those types of opportunities? Because as most of you are pretty aware, 2 years goes by pretty quickly. And before you know it, believe it or not, we're going to be in another grant cycle. And so it'd be nice to right out of the gate, right as we kind of finish up one grant cycle, that right away we're taking a close look at what are these opportunities to really advance coordination in our region, because that will serve you well in applying for the next grant cycle. But most importantly, it will serve not only the general public well, for those that are serving in a general public space, but also for those that are serving individual clients, and might open the doors for opportunities to serve more people within our region, more people being able to meet the needs of some of the general public. So I want to kind of open up the floor for some discussions around this and see kind of what's arguably like our low-hanging fruit. So what are the topics that we think come to mind that we might be able to take a look at our opportunities to either cross-train or do some kind of shared learning? And what would that look like? Does it look like an event that takes place where we all come together, or is it done more virtually, right, through technology or email, or more private discussions, or all of the above? But I would like to kind of open up the floor for your thoughts on what are some of the things that you feel that you could bring to the table. Maybe you have a specific training or a topic that you're really interested in learning from another organization, or maybe if we were to do something where it is done at a particular location, perhaps one of the things that you could bring to the table is perhaps, the space, right, to accommodate something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor and see what your thoughts are on this particular topic. So, and I see that Mandy Hendricks from Easter Seals joined us. Good morning, Mandy.
I was joining, my computer decided to update all my Zoom settings, so my apologies. It's a few minutes late. I just wanted to, I'm so glad you're talking about this, and I just wanted to throw out to the group that we have a couple of past trainers, and we would be happy to host a past training, help train any of your employees. So that's something that we have to share.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mandy. I appreciate that. So I will connect with you after this call, and we can kind of talk through what that might look like. And then together we can send out a communication about that offering and see how many people would like to take advantage of that. And then I see that Carmen Johnson from Catholic Community Services, and I also see Mike Gadarian from the Tucson JCC is on the call. So I'm just going to circle back real quick and do some quick introductions. So good morning, Carmen.
Hello. Sorry I was a little late. I had the wrong link.
It's okay. It happens. I understand. I'm just glad you're able to join us this morning. So good morning.
Happy to be here. Good morning.
And then Mike Gadarian.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for joining us this morning. Glad to have you. All right. So we're just going to open up the floor for discussions. I think most of you might have heard Mandy Hendricks from Easter Seals Blake Foundation shared that they do have some past trainers available to do some different types of past training. So if there are folks in your organization that either are coming due or will be due for some type of past training, let's talk about that and try to get that coordinated. So that'd be one opportunity. But within that, what are some other opportunities that you see as being a need, right, within your organization, or could be a need from a regional perspective? Or what are some things that you think that you could bring to the table in terms of a shared learning or a cross training, or even what we've characterized as a quality of services training, because all of which will lend itself to some potential memorandums of understanding, right? Like an equitable exchange of services or resources, but obviously put us in a great posture to enhance coordination throughout the region, but also set everyone up for success for future grant cycles, as that is one of the criteria that is looked at. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. So just feel free to unmute and share what your thoughts are.
Hey, Janine, this is John.
Hi, John. Good morning.
We could also share in that past training if that develops into something, and also if anybody would be interested in accident prevention training or injury prevention training.
Sure.
We feel like we work hard on those trainings as well. And then I don't know if the other agencies, they probably don't have to develop the public transportation agency safety plan, because most of them aren't public transportation agencies. But if anybody has to and they're wanting any support from us, we'd be glad to help in that area.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So we do have some folks that are new, whether it be they're new to their organization, although their organization has been a part of the working group for a while. But we also just have new members as a whole on the call today. So for those that may not have had an opportunity to get a sense of what your accident prevention training looks like at some of the prior ASTA conferences. Do you mind just kind of giving kind of a quick overview of what that entails, you know, just a few bullet points to kind of help shape that so that people kind of get an understanding of what you mean by that?
So we have in the past, I think 6 years now, 5 years maybe, video cameras in all of our vehicles. And so when we do our accident review boards, we're able to drill right down to the causes of different kinds of accidents and injuries that have occurred. And we've developed pretty aggressive prevention training based on those. And we actually end up just using snippets from the videos with the faces blurred out so people can't identify people. And we talk about what happened and why it happened and why the drivers or the persons were negligent or not aware and allowed the event to happen. And that then helps people who are in the training, when they find themselves in that situation, it helps them from going down that same path. So that's kind of the scenario of how it works.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much. I know another thing that you have is, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, but in terms of just different things that are in the space of shared learning, from your, I think it's within your preventive maintenance checklist, right? You encourage your drivers to find things, right, as part of the checklist that they follow. Maybe I'm not characterizing it correctly, but could you speak to a little bit to that as well?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I guess
Maybe it's not the preventive maintenance, it's the I'm sorry, the pre and post trip inspection. I think that's what it is. I think I accidentally said preventive maintenance.
okay. Well, we have a couple things. We have a standard operating procedure that we put in place so that we could audit to make sure people are actually not just pencil whipping the pre and post trip inspections. So we have these tags, if you want to call them that, or little things that we attach to different places on the vehicle. And so if they're doing their their pre-trip and post-trip inspections properly, they'll find the tag. We don't hide it. It's very obvious. And if they are doing their pre-trip inspection properly, they'll find that tag. And then the town has allowed us to offer them a $5 gift card to Subway or Starbucks or wherever they want to go. If they find the tag, and if they don't find the tag, we call them in the office and we sit down with them and say, look, you need to do your pre-trip and post-trip inspections properly. And we write up a little memo for their file. So that's how that part works. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And I apologize for saying the preventive maintenance as the example. I know you have both, but I was referring to the pre and post trip inspection. So
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. So else has some other shared learning opportunities that they might be willing to share or open up to other organizations that could benefit from it? I'm going to just allow anyone to kind of unmute their mic as appropriate. So I might put Steve Nath on the spot just because I know Hope has a pretty neat program. So
yeah, we actually do something similar. We don't do the gift cards, but we have the pre and post inspection, but we also have a specific person at each site that does a thorough monthly inspection. And then Irma and I will do sort of just drop-in inspections of the vehicles and just to make sure that we're following along and everybody's catching. would totally be open to sharing some of the forms that we use and talking about the different trainings that we do. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. I know there's quite a few organizations that have been really successful in sharing information with other organizations. I know Town of Oro Valley has and Beacon Group has. They have shared checklists and different types of resources, and that has helped a lot of organizations take a closer look at practices that you already have in place and be able to enhance them. So I'd like to get to a place where more people are sharing different types of information, whether it be the way they train their drivers, the way they do pre and post trip inspections, so that everyone can kind of have a sense of different methodologies and be able to take a look at their own to say, what pieces could we potentially incorporate what we've learned from other organizations into our own, or what's something that we're seeing that other organizations aren't doing by looking at theirs that we are doing that sets ours apart, so that we can, speak to that and share it with other organizations. So I think there's value in sharing that information from a variety of perspectives. The driver training piece is always of interest to me. I don't know that there's someone from Savvy on the call today, but I know Savvy does a very interesting training with their drivers in serving individuals with visual impairment and blindness. And I wish they were on the call, they could speak to that, because their example of what they do with their drivers, I think, has a lot of transferability to some of the things that people can give a closer look or thought around in their own driver training practices. So even if you don't serve the general public, such as the Town of Oro Valley, there are a lot of things that you as a organization that's serving just individual clients, that I feel like you have an incredible bench strength, and you could share it with other people and help them become. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move to compliance, maintenance, and safety practices, because that is the next item on our agenda. So again, this is in alignment with our current public transit human services coordination transportation plan. And so some of the things that you'll know from things that we've looked at part of the coordinated plan, but also in the ADOT guidebook, there is an emphasis on driver training, making sure that you have, thorough files and documentation for different things. And there is always the opportunity for site visits. And so the discussion today is for us to kind of take a closer look on how can we have more confidence around our compliance pieces as being responsible recipients of FTA funds, and then also just putting us in a posture of success for everything that is related to compliance, but of course, if you were to have a site visit. And so I always feel like the best time to prepare for a site visit is before one happens, right? That the operative word being prepare. So the idea of having a mock site visit is something that I've been kind of leaning into and trying to take a closer look at and what that would look like. How can I support you well on preparing for a site visit? And so site visits are rather comprehensive, right? There's lots of pieces that are looked at during a site visit. So to not overwhelm any one individual organization, I thought it made sense to try to chip away at one section, if you will, of a site visit at a time, and start with the things that perhaps that you have the most familiarity around, and perhaps the opportunity to make the biggest difference around in terms of your confidence around compliance. And so the driver training and maintenance, which we talked about, or we're talking about right now, and of course vehicle files that tie in with that, seem like a great place to start. And when I say mock site visits, we're going to kind of open up the discussion about what that could look like. And so one of the things that I would like to do is kind of work with you one-on-one about these different particulars that are pertinent to a site visit in the space of driver training and vehicle files. but I would also like to open up the floor of what a mock site visit could look like. And so for example purposes only, a mock site visit could mean myself coming out and we just kind of talk through things together. Or it could mean that we do it together, meaning you invite another working group member to come out to your site and you talk through pieces together, and by proxy exchange insights and wisdom about how you're meeting the expectations around compliance. And then through that, if you have additional questions or you need additional support around something, of course, I'm always available. So I'd like to open up the discussion about what your thoughts are about mock site visits, the approach that you would like to take, because it's really not for me to decide what they look like or that they have to be done. It's just an opportunity of consideration. Would it be helpful? Would you find value in it? And if the answer to that is yes, what would it look like? And how would you like to see it done? And what would you like to get out of it? And maybe the driver training and the vehicle files isn't where you want to start first. Maybe it's another category. And we could talk about that as well. So I'm going to open up the floor for this particular component, which is tied to the compliance piece for maintenance and safety practices, and offering a different level of support, and the idea of potentially doing a mock site visit to get your thoughts and your perspective on that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor and see what your thoughts are. And I'm going to put John Hawbaker on, or not John, but Mike on the spot, because I think we talked about it a little bit, but
You mean Mike Alexander?
yeah, sorry.
He's on vacation.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
So yeah, so I think one of the things that we were talking about, Mike Alexander and I, were about the mock site visits, and it makes sense potentially for organizations to go visit one another and kind of talk through those pieces together versus myself coming out, or a little bit of both. So I'm sharing that as an example of something that we chatted about. But I'm going to open up the floor, like I said, and get your thoughts on what you would find a value in this piece. I think it is important to take a look at those pieces and understand well what is included in a site visit, and take a closer look at those pieces. So I'm open to your suggestions and your thoughts on that.
I know that we would totally be open to a mock site visit. It's,
Okay.
we feel like we're really thorough, but it's nice to have that other set of eyes that's not knee deep in the daily minutia, that could go, oh, what's this over here, or why are you doing that? Just we feel like we learn from the audits when they happen. So something to help us learn in advance. That's heavy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the value in doing mock site visits isn't in the space of like, what can we find that you're not doing right, but more of like, let's acknowledge all the things that you're doing really well, and where there's some opportunities just to fine tune some things and make it stronger, so that across the board everything is really strong. But also through that shared discussion, especially if you're partnering with another organization, there's just that another step in terms of sharing ideas, sharing resources, and learning from one another. Because you might feel like the way you do your vehicle files is perfect and it makes sense for you. But then when someone else is talking about vehicle files and they say, our files are set up pretty similar to yours. However, we do one extra thing, or we do one thing slightly different. And then through that discussion, you're like, that's a genius idea. We should totally be doing that, right? So I think there's some value in talking to other agencies that are navigating the same compliance pieces that you are. But in the same breath, it could be helpful for someone like myself to come out and take a look, just because I have kind of a different perspective, if you will, right? I'm not necessarily navigating those pieces every day, but I am a resource that's available to you. And if there's some clarification that you need, obviously I can reach out to ADOT for some support on that. So, but the other piece is I'd like to think that by proxy of being more involved in terms of the site visits with different organizations, perhaps I'll identify some trends of what are we doing really well across the region with regard to compliance, and then of course where potentially is there an opportunity for us to be a little bit stronger, and then and see what that level of support looks like to build everyone up in that particular category. And then if there are some trends, if you will, that we see that are with newer organizations, right? This is kind of their first time navigating compliance for 5310. They might need a different level of support than someone that's perhaps more tenured or more seasoned in it. And what does that look like? So I just want to make sure that my view of what your needs are is accurate. And I also don't want to forget that you're also, busy. You have lots of people that you serve every day, and time moves quickly, and you can have the best intention to send me an email saying, hey, we'd like some support around this. And then time gets away from us. So if I can be helpful in having you have to send one less email, then, I'd like to be a part of that. So my message is for us to have a discussion about what would you like to see from a support perspective on this, on compliance and maintenance and safety practices, and what would be of value to you if we were to do any kind of mock site visit. And maybe your answer is you don't want to do a mock site visit, and that's honest, but what would support look like for your organization in this space? And that's kind of what I'd like to everyone on the call today. So I'm going to open up the floor.
Well, the town of Oro Valley is great with people coming to our location or going to other people's locations, as you and Mike already talked about. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else have some thoughts or?
Hi, Janine, this is Irma. I was just wanting to chime in and say that I think this is a great idea where we can get information and ideas from other agencies, and then also you joining us on these little mock sites maybe, so that way we can all be on the same page and learn from each other. And if we are doing something slightly different or a little wrong, we can correct it at that time and move forward doing everything the proper way.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so I will I'll send out a communication about mock site visits and get some feedback from all of you on how you'd like to have that happen. So if it's virtual, or if it's me coming out, or you'd like another organization to come visit instead or in conjunction with, you can have kind of a voice around that. And obviously, I want you to have adequate time to process, right? Because I understand you have a lot of things going on and you have to make sure you still have the right staffing for these types of activities. So I want to give you that time to process and think it through and give me your feedback or your thoughts on it. So stay tuned, I guess you could say, for an email from me, and I'll look for your feedback on that in that fashion.
Janine?
Yes.
In your future development of this, it seems like it might be good if there's like very simple, but a checklist or something that
Okay.
when we go to a location or somebody comes to our location, these are the bullets of what we want to, at least some of the things we would like to hit on or whatever. So.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So everybody kind of knows what the scope is and what we're going to tackle, so we can be very intentional with our time and make the most of it.
It doesn't have to be everything on the list, because some places might say, I don't know about this. What is this? Or
right.
whatever. let's talk about this. And I already got this down, let's skip that for now. If we have time, we'll come back to it, that kind of thing. So,
Sure. Yeah, it could be a working document, something that is flexible, works for each organization as. So yeah, no, that's great. That's great feedback and things we could put together. Definitely. All right. Any other thoughts or concerns about that before we move to the next topic? All right, well, if you're being shy or if you think about something later and you'd like to contribute, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. All right, so we're going to move to the next topic on today's agenda, and it's support for transportation services, and again, in alignment with the coordinated plan. And so these pieces are perhaps rooted in the more of the planning, the proactive side of things. And so let me kind of set the stage for that a little bit. Different people have different mobility needs for different reasons, and the way that they become a client, or that the way that they become a passenger in your vehicle, whether it be through public transportation, right, or client based type transportation services, can vary widely, right? And so some of them are through referrals and different resources throughout our region. Others are referred through different types of case managers, et cetera. And so I would like to get a better understanding of, from a planning perspective, of what that looks like, so that we as a region can be perhaps more proactive in understanding not only what are some of the needs, but also what does it look like when someone is looking, I guess you could say, to become a client, or presents a need to become a client, or presents a need to benefit from different types of transportation services, whether it be general public or otherwise. Because with that, having a good understanding of the resources that are in alignment with those needs will also be helpful to people in our region. So, and it also helps us understand where are we really strong in meeting some of those transportation services regionally, but also where are some opportunities to improve. So I'd like to take a closer look at what case management, if you will, means in your world, and how it intersects with transportation services. And of course, what do referrals and different resources look like in the same spirit. The other piece is sometimes case managers get involved either short-term or long-term because of an accident or injury, or some kind of life-changing event, right? Like someone has a stroke or a car accident or something of that nature. And sometimes it's, just age-related. But regardless of the reason, at some point, a case manager will often get involved. And then how do individuals get referred, so to speak, to organizations such as yourself? And how can we as a region help people be, I guess you could say, more proactive in that, as we identify people's needs changing, that they can get the support and access to the resources that they need in perhaps a more timely manner. So those are some things that I'd like to just kind of get a better understanding of. And I'm planting those seeds now because, much like this is in alignment with our coordinated plan today, in the years ahead, we will be looking to do a major update to our coordinated plan. And through that process, we will get your input as part of that planning process. So if we can start to plant a seed around that and get some discussions going around in that space, when it makes sense to take kind of that closer look or a deeper dive on those pieces, it won't be so foreign to us, and it won't seem so out of left field, right? It won't be the first time we've talked about it. So I'd like to try to, from a very high level view for the purpose of this call or a meeting, is to kind of get a sense of which of the two do you feel is where you could shed the most light? Is it in the case management side, or is it in the referrals and or resources side? Because from an FTA Section 5310 perspective, we are serving individuals that are either elderly and or have a disability of some kind. So those needs can change widely, and new needs are, presenting themselves every day, right? So I'm going to kind of open up the floor for what your initial thoughts are. And again, this is just very high level on where you think you have something to perhaps contribute in terms of some insights or knowledge or wisdom around, whether it be in the case management space or the referral process, or even just resources. So, and that, of course, ties back into coordination as well. So it's kind of two-pronged, if you will, but we are focused more on the support side in this instance, and arguably opportunities to be proactive in nature and planning side. So I'm going to open it up for thoughts on case management and referrals and resources. Maybe a good place to start is just to kind of share what it looks like at your organization. Like, how does someone get referred to your organization, or what resources typically bode well with people who benefit from your services, and what does that look like? Or what level of involvement do you have with case managers, if at all, right? Those are probably some very high level questions that perhaps we could start the conversation with in terms of answers to.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, Shaylin.
It's Shaylin. So our transportation is primarily client-based, and most of our referrals come through the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and all of our members have case managers, and they refer them to us and authorized services, transportation, what other kind of services that, after school program, summer program, respite, all those things. So we work with DDD case managers all the time. And, but I don't know how it kind of is in line with, with the PAB and the Public Transit and Human Services, because we're mainly member-based.
Right. Yeah, you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people or organizations here that have very client-based services, but you are still meeting the needs of individuals who are either elderly and or disabled in our region, which still is integral part of our coordinated plan. So I think there are some aspects that would be of value for you to be able to share with us in terms of what does that look like and how does it work. So I would appreciate that, especially since I believe your organization is one of, a small number that provides transportation services for children with developmental disabilities. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective, especially in the area in which you serve too, right? Footprint.
Right. And so sometimes it's difficult for us to include other riders, basically, because of all the security measures that have to be taken by people being with our members,
Right.
like the trainings and, background clearance, fingerprint clearance, things like that. So that's why it's sometimes difficult for us to include other people, not to mention, we're not allowed to have any members over 18 in our actual programs, like our after school or summer program. Once they turn 18, they kind of go into the adult field. So DDD can be a little strict on some of those things.
Sure.
So,
So I think one of the things that would be interesting to talk about is what does that transition look like when someone, one day is 17, right? And they're able to benefit from your services. But we know when the calendar moves and they eventually turn 18 and they're going to segue or transition to other support services, what does that look like? And it would just help us to gain that kind of perspective.
well, we actually do have some children that are in the 16-year-old range that we've already encouraged, parents to look into, like Sunvan. So we actually have 2 or 3 kiddos that actually are being transported in via Sunvan or Vantran. So kind of getting them ready for that, because
Sure.
I've got a 17-year-old that's going to be transitioning to work. So she's going to be
Right.
doing a work program. So we're trying to get her transitioned that way. Sometimes we have parents that are not always comfortable with that. So we might sometimes send one of our staff with her on a ride and just get permission up front to ride along. So.
Right. No, that's good. I think that's good, good insight. And I think that speaks well to some of the things from like a planning side that would be interesting to look at, which is part of the reason why this is on the agenda. Again, tying into, when we have to do a more comprehensive update to the coordinated plan, is if you look at the existing one of the things that we asked of all of the participating agencies is to kind of help give us a lens for not only where do you serve, right, rural or urbanized areas, but what populations do you serve, right? Is it elderly? Is it individuals with disability? Is it both? And then also, is it individuals that are over the age of 65 or under the age of 18, or all across the spectrum, to give us a sense of not only how many agencies do we have that are providing transportation that's in alignment with this particular funding, but also where are they serving and in what pockets, if you will, right, in terms of like urban, rural, or all of the above, but also what demographics are being served and where do we see ourselves being really strong, and then where do we see some opportunities. So for planning purposes for the next one, it'd be interesting to take a look and have a better understanding of some of those transitions, right? Not just from an age related perspective, like you are eligible for this. And so we have some strength here, but once people transition to over the age 18, the level of support changes, but in what way? And in the same breath, your programs under the age 18 might be more rooted in just after school, right? The education space. Then once someone transitions because of age, in your example, over the age of 18, perhaps the shift is still, perhaps there's a shift because of the age, but also they're still pursuing education, but it just looks differently. Or now they're doing a little bit of both vocational training or actually seeking employment, and what does that look like? So just to better understand how the needs of the region change, but also how are we meeting those needs? And so I think you'd be able to bring a unique perspective and voice to that discussion. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else? I think Franny's audio is not working today, or I was going to call on Franny because Franny has a unique perspective on working at Tohono O'odham. And so it'd be interesting to hear from her how things work in this space. So Franny, I'm probably going to give you a call after this meeting adjourns so that I can kind of get some thoughts around that from you. But anyone else that would like to kind of share some different thoughts or concerns that they have in the case management or referrals and resources space inherent to what they do in serving the region?
I don't know that I have any concerns, but we were just going through our transportation for the last year just to see how it panned out, and we do a lot of mostly member focused transportation, but we also do a lot of outreach and a lot of work in the criminal justice arena. And we found that about 10% of our transportation is non-member related, because we're doing that outreach and getting them to services, and also because we're sort of like meeting people when they're getting released from detention or prison or treatment, and transporting them to get them connected to services so they can be more effective. So it garners us some referrals and stuff, but it's really, I think there's a lot of agencies out there that do a lot of outreach and don't realize that they're doing the transportation.
Right.
It doesn't get counted because they're not on anybody's client store, or pick up somebody on the corner of wherever and get them to services. I think just a lot of times, a lot of agencies do that. Actually,
I think that's good feedback. That's really good feedback. Anyone else have some thoughts? I know there's a couple organizations that are primarily client-based, but there is a certain portion of their programs that are somewhat open to the general public. So those organizations kind of have a unique posture in terms of they can kind of see almost both sides to some extent. But what that looks like in terms of case management referrals might play out a little bit differently than it does for organizations that are either 100% client-based or 100% open to the public, or just inherent to the populations that they serve. So those are just different things that I think we'll want to take a closer look at as next year or two kind of unfold and we prepare for the next major update. So if you start to see more opportunities, requests, if you will, for discussions about how case management and referrals and resources that are pertinent to your programs play out in serving our region. Hopefully this meeting will be kind of a reminder of the why behind it. So if you see more stuff coming from me, you'll know what that's about. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Any questions? All right, so just as a quick recap before we move to the next item on the agenda, I will be kind of circling back with a few of you. So Town of Oro Valley, for some of the approaches that you use for like pre and post trip inspections, et cetera, your accident prevention training, things of that nature. And then of course, Easter Seals Blake Foundation for the past training. And then of course, Hope for some of your programs. And then you will see some communications from me with regard to different opportunities to take a look at how we might do mock site visits and what would be of value to you. And what approach you would feel most comfortable with. And then we could start kind of coordinating those pieces. And then of course, a development of some type of guideline or checklist that says, to some extent, here's what we will most likely be trying to take a look at during this version of site visits, mock site visits, that is. And obviously some built-in flexibility for you as an individual to say, this is what we would like to tackle because we would find the most value in that. So you definitely have a voice in that process. And then probably see some timelines in terms of when we might roll out types of mock site visits. And then the last part about the support for transportation services in terms of case manager referrals, I start to see some things come from me in terms of trying to understand those pieces better in preparation for our next major update that we will be working with you on putting together. So, all right, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide in the interest of time, because we are approaching 11 o'clock. So it is just before 11, it's 10:56, and I'm going to go ahead and move to adjourn the meeting unless there's any other comments or questions that people have. Just one reminder, since we are going to be reporting the in-kind, if your position is paid for with federal dollars, whether in part or in its entirety, please let me know so that we can report our in-kind accurately. Just send me an email, and that would be helpful to me. And I appreciate each of you investing time in today's meeting. Just as a reminder, it's always good to have someone else in your organization aware of when the next meeting is coming up, so that if for whatever reason you're unable to attend, someone can step in and represent your organization well. And obviously, for those that have been through the grant cycle process, one of the things that we do look at is the extent to which attend the meetings, but also actively participate in the meetings. And then, of course, what are the fruits that come from the meetings? What happens after we have the meeting? So all those pieces are looked at and reviewed throughout each year as we lean into respective grant cycle. So please make the most of these different opportunities, not only to attend and understand where we're headed and what we're trying to work on as a group, but also where you can bring your expertise and wisdom to the table and to the working group, so that we can advance some of these coordination efforts. So I appreciate your time, and I'm going to give you the rest of your day back. So I'm going to go ahead and then adjourn the meeting. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
Bye.